This program is brought to you by 3C TV. Like what you learn? Visit our website or follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up on the latest 3C TV programs.
So good afternoon. Thank you very much for attending this session. Magdalena Torres and I have worked, we did this session last year with a few folks that served as panelists, and then we're doing it again this year because to us this is a really important topic. We like to remember to serve all of our veterans on our campuses, but women veterans in particular sometimes have unique needs, have different challenges that it would be great for all of us to be able to address. So today we want to give you guys some resources. We want to give you some information about the women veterans population in California and who you might be seeing on your campus. And then we'll definitely hear from some great student veterans who are going to college or who have attended community colleges to kind of give you their perspective about what it is to be a woman on a campus. They may have some unique stories for you. And then we'll take a large question and answer session for this so that we can kind of flesh out if you're really looking to look and identify your populations of women veterans, that we can help you do that. So to start, not only was I in the Navy, but I also served as a certifying official on a community college campus and on a state campus for the CSU. So I understand your plight if you're a certifying official. I get it. But the funny thing is that I always took for granted that there was a major difference in the populations of women veterans and male veterans. And here I am myself, a woman veteran. So it's not something that you just readily think of when you're serving your students. It may not be something that you're looking at to differentiate between gender, but when you start kind of digging down into the areas of persistence and what's keeping someone on a campus and what's helping someone perform at a level that's going to get them to the next class, to the next semester, and then on to their next pursuit, like a four-year college, sometimes those factors really are about gender and are about what women may have experienced in the military or what they're experiencing post-military and during their transition. So with that, we're going to start with some questions that I'm going to have Magdalena pose to you. These are just things to think about. You don't have to answer them. You don't have to give any feedback right now, but this should get your brain kind of moving in the direction that we'd like to see. So with that, I'll give it to Magdalena.
Lindsay and I sat down and we thought about what questions would be appropriate for you to hear so that, as she said, would get you thinking about the women veterans on your campuses, and when you do work with them, the types of questions that would be helpful to know about. How well do you know your campus? Do you know how many student women veterans are on your campus? Do you have a way to identify them? Do you have a way to contact student women veterans directly? Do you have mail lists? I mean, do you have a way to do that? Do you use email list or social media? Do you organize special events for student women veterans? Recognition, celebration, retreats, evening events, study groups, group therapy. Do you have this available on your campus? Do you provide materials targeted to women veterans? Pamphlets, VA health care information. How updated do you keep your women veterans of benefits and changes that are being made? Okay. How well do you know, whoops.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Do you, okay, I'm sorry. How well do you know your campus? Do you recruit, hire female veterans for work study or staff positions? Do you have a women's center on your campus? Are female veterans serving as officers or participating in Student Veterans Club or other clubs on campus? How well do you know your community? Do you know of any services available to women veterans in your community? can you name any of the top needs of women veterans nationwide and in California? Do you know how many women veterans reside in California? I mean, are you aware of the stats? Do you know this? Do you have access to this information? Do you know where the closest VA hospital or clinic is located? CVSO, VBA district office. Are you aware of this? To what campus community service do you refer student women veterans? Okay, that's it. I'm going to turn this back over to Lindsay.
Okay, thank you. So some of these questions are kind of designed to get you to start thinking about how you may want to be tracking women. If you can use a PeopleSoft software of some kind to actually differentiate by gender, for instance. If you have a social media like a Facebook page for the campus, perhaps you want to create something for veterans or for women veterans. But a lot of the stuff that we're asking, this is not insurmountable because we can help you with it. And that's the good news, is that we have a lot of these details and these pamphlets, and the VA has outreach toolkits that can really help aid your outreach or your services that you're providing to women vets on your campus. I know that when I was a certifying official, students would come to me with other issues. They certainly were looking for housing, employment, needed other resources, and it was really from the ground up that we would have to kind of start researching and providing that information ourselves. That's not something that everyone should have to do. No one should have to reinvent the wheel. So hopefully, out of this, California Department of Veterans Affairs can help provide a lot of that information to you. And if you're connected with your community, with your county veteran service offices, for instance, hopefully they can also help provide that information to you or directly to your students. But that really helps to circle back and close this loop of services that we're trying to provide to our students, because if they're not successful in one aspect of their life, they're not going to be successful on your campus either. So just to cover a little bit of history about women of service, you didn't think you were going to get a history lesson today, but you are. I was a history major, I'm sorry. So women have always served in the military. We've served since the Revolutionary War. We've dressed up as men to fight in combat when we weren't legally allowed to actually be part of the armed services. Several women disguised themselves as men to do so. So Kathy Williams was really the first woman to be recognized and documented to have done so. And then in the Civil War, women served on both the Union and Confederate sides. And then we've also not only served in every major military conflict that the U.S. has been involved in, we've also sustained casualties. So I like these statistics because they kind of break down in a very succinct table the fact that women are actually battling and dying, and that means something. That means that those women deserve just as much respect when they come to a campus or a community as men do. So this table shows the level of women actually joining and enlisting or being commissioned as officers into the military over since 1945 until the present. And this is kind of an interesting table because there's some really cool markers in here. So the first is, this is where the number of women that were serving was about 250,000 at the end of World War II. And obviously, once the war was over, women were no longer in the military service to those numbers. And so that dropped significantly. And then you see a small spike here for the Korean conflict. And then in 1973, you see a huge spike and the numbers increasing significantly over the next decade because suddenly we were in all volunteer service. And so women were actually joining the military in much higher numbers. And so what that really represents is that every time women have been given the opportunity to serve in the military, every time their opportunities have actually increased through increased roles, increased branches of service, integration into the service, we've taken the opportunity to join, to be commissioned, and to enlist. So currently there's about 14 to 15% of the active duty services are women. 18 to 20% are National Guard and Reserves, and we're one of the fastest growing cohorts of enlistments in the military right now. And to answer that one question, there's approximately 185,000 women veterans in California, and nationwide we're about 1.5 million. So we represent 10% of the California veterans population, which is slightly higher than the national average. And that's going to increase over the next 2 decades significantly. So we'll be, I think by 2032, 2035, we'll be about 15% of the California veterans population. which is significant because that means we really need to start building services and awareness for women now to make sure that they're fully transitioned back into civilian life. So one interesting statistic on there, though, is that the median age of a female veteran is much younger than it is of a male veteran, because so many of us have started to join the services in later generations at higher numbers. So women veterans are going to have different needs. They're still going to be raising minor children. They're still going to be building their careers. They're going to be pursuing their education. And actually, women veterans are pursuing their education at higher rates than men. That said, they definitely have challenges. And so those include limitations of service because of the areas that they can serve in still, certainly issues with equipment that may not fit them correctly, improper training if they're not part of, if they weren't allowed to be in infantry, then they didn't get trained to actually engage in combat, which means they weren't trained properly when it actually happened and they actually did find themselves receiving and exchanging fire. And sexual assault and harassment do continue to be an issue in the military. 1 in 5 women has reported to experience some sort of trauma related to assault or harassment in the military, and that is a much higher percentage of probability that women will be harassed or raped in the military than men. The work-life balance is a major issue. Women are constantly looking to be the caregivers in a family, to, we adopt many different roles in our life, in our personal relationships, and of course that carries over when we also want to serve our country. Those two can come into conflict. And then gender roles. Well, the military doesn't like Hello Kitty and glitter as much as I do. So you have a Hello Kitty phone, so you understand this. Which means that when you serve in the military, as a woman, sometimes you try and downplay some aspects of femininity. And then when you get out of the military, you now have to kind of reconcile those with society. And that's difficult to do. Challenges after service, though, are primarily what we end up focusing on because of where we are with our veterans. So we're obviously seeing these folks come out of the military and transition. So this is when we are interacting with them the most. And of course, many of those challenges are exactly what men are facing as well. And that can be unemployment, lack of housing, medical disabilities, mental health disorders. But it also includes a higher proclivity with, or a higher probability of military sexual trauma and post-traumatic stress related to that. It includes not being recognized as a veteran because I don't have a high and tight haircut and I don't wear the World War II veteran cap or the Korean cap. I don't know any woman that really does. So we're not easily recognized as veterans. And a lot of us aren't carrying the camouflage backpacks either. So people don't look at us and think that we have served in the military. So because of that, we have created a barrier to service. So women don't necessarily seek the benefits at the same rates that men do. And actually, other groups don't either. Ethnic minority veterans, non-white veterans don't seek services at the same rate that white male veterans do either because of those barriers. So there's a lot of stereotypes and stigmas about women who join the military. We're supposed to be a lot tougher. Perhaps we're gay. Perhaps we like to chew tobacco. So none of those are actually really good stereotypes because the veterans population is extremely diverse, and we're as diverse as we are, I don't know, we're just an interesting group. So you meet one veteran, that's all you've met is one veteran. So those stereotypes are definitely hard to overcome. And then readjusting to appropriate behavior for women in civilian life, which goes back to the idea of gender roles. And then there are still barriers of service or to service within the actual organizations designed to help us. So within the VA healthcare system, within the VA benefits system, we still experience challenges. Oftentimes, claims are awarded at lower percentages than they are for men, depending on what the healthcare issue is. Likewise, the healthcare facility at the VA may not be ready to receive women. That may really come down to who the leadership is on that facility as to whether or not you get the proper care that you need. So all of those are major issues that women may be dealing with when they're on your campus. So we did a survey in 2011. We're actually conducting our 3rd survey this year, but what we have is results from the 2011 survey. So based on that, we found some really unique needs to women veterans in the state that actually responded to the survey, and we had over 900 women respond. And so, of course, the top needs are very similar to what men were experiencing: healthcare, education, employment, and housing. But for women, it also included gender-specific services. Women are looking for female providers. They're looking for anything that's going to affect their lives as women. So for instance, childcare issues, and they're looking for those services to be available in healthcare. They're looking for cultural competency and those services to be available in the veteran service organizations that they speak with. And that could include college campuses too. And then they're also looking for peer mentorship. And so I think with gender-specific services, with looking for recognition and looking for peer mentorship, those are things that campuses can directly impact. So by recognizing our women vets, by providing them with mentors on the campus, and by providing some literature and cultural competency about the fact that they're female, that actually will improve their success rates, hopefully, although not empirically studied yet. So anybody who wants to do that work, let me know. Will probably increase their success rates on the campus. So the US Department of Affairs, the federal government, has three divisions. The first is the Veterans Benefit Administration, which really administers GI Bill benefits, disability benefits, retirement and pension benefits, and then benefits to dependents as well. Veterans Cemeteries, I don't need to explain that one. And Veterans Health Administration, this is the entire healthcare system for the VA. Within that system, within the Veterans Benefit Administration first, there are a lot of female-specific offices and focus as of probably the last 10 years, which is great. The first is that there are women veteran coordinators at each of the VA regional claims offices. We have 3 VA regional claims offices in the state, Oakland, San Diego, and Los Angeles. And so those individuals are responsible for working specifically with claims usually related to post-traumatic stress and military sexual trauma, and they also provide the training for those individuals on those facilities. So they actually train any of the veteran service reps on those facilities to work with those claims. And every VA service rep should actually be trained in military sexual trauma and post-traumatic stress. And that's actually one of the hardest claims to develop and then to adjudicate and rate. And so there's a lot of training that the VA provides for this. Unfortunately, when I speak to women veteran coordinators in an anecdotal sense, they're usually only assigned to that job half-time, and they don't necessarily get enough time to train all of the individuals that they do. And the numbers have shown that. So 2 out of 3 claims for sexual assault or for trauma related to sexual assault and PTSD were rejected by the VA from 2008 to 2010. And only 32% of claims for PTSD related to military sexual trauma were approved versus 56% for PTSD related to combat. And yet research has shown that post-traumatic stress related to sexual assault is one of the most, and probably the most psychologically damaging experiences that an individual can go through. So they have a lot of work to do still, and we're hoping to help with that here in California. There's also a Center for Women Veterans that's based out of DC, and this is a task force slash kind of direct report to Secretary Shinseki that works to make different recommendations to the Department of Veterans Affairs about how they can improve services for women. And so every year the task force convenes along at the leadership of the center and works to put those recommendations forward to the secretary. And then they also follow up with the previous year's recommendations to make sure that those have been met. So the task force is good, the Center for Women Veterans is good, but because they're in DC, there's not as much influence, I think, as they'd like to have. So that's where we come in, and where our local state government and local agencies can really help them to do their job better. So within the Veterans Health Administration, there are full-time women veteran program managers at each VA hospital, and so they cover the hospital along with all of the clinics and satellite facilities that cover within that hospital's purview. These individuals are responsible for coordinating the care for women with women providers such as the doctors, nurse practitioners, OBGYNs, et cetera. And so I talk to these women regularly. We talk about once a month, and they're working really hard. They're good folks. But once again, a lot of times how much progress they can make on their campuses depends on 2 things. It really depends on the feedback they get from their women vets, which is huge, and it depends on the leadership of that facility, and that makes all the difference. So they really focus on the gender-specific healthcare services that the VA does provide for women, which include mammograms. It includes OBGYN, gynecological issues. It does include prenatal care, and then fee-based maternity care as well. And then for mental health care, there are lots of opportunities for women to go to the VA to seek some mental health treatment or to seek informal therapy with the VA or with the Veterans Center, which is fantastic. Actually, if anyone's male or female is suffering from post-traumatic stress related to military sexual trauma, they can go to the VA or a vet center completely for free. They don't necessarily need to be eligible for other benefits or other health care with them. They can go seek that there. But there is criticism in terms of the mental health care that's provided, so sometimes people seek that elsewhere, which could include a campus. And so for us, for our division, my mission at the Department of Veterans Affairs, California Department of Veterans Affairs, is to provide information, advocacy, outreach, and support to California's women veterans. And those are two women, Shirley Shaw and Evelyn Lackey, that they're lovely. So the first thing we do is really increase the points of access to information and education. We also found in our 2011 survey that over half of the women we surveyed did not know about their state benefits, and slightly less than half did not know about many of their federal benefits. So for that reason, we've done a few things that we've implemented that are hoping to help with that. One is our Women Veterans roster. That's a roster that we ask women to sign up for. We ask them to be part of a listserv so that we can stay in contact with them and always keep them apprised and educated of what the latest developments are for women's health, benefits, events, things we're doing statewide, and then what's going on nationwide. And then every other month we put out a newsletter, and this is an electronic newsletter that's delivered through that email listserv as well. And so these are great ways for your student veterans, since they are more technically savvy, and a lot of this is done now via the internet, for them to stay in touch with us and know what's going on as well. And then I encourage everyone to get on our listserv as well, veteran or non-veteran, so that you know what's happening throughout the state. And then we also have a social media Facebook page, and I'll give that address a little bit later. We do regular phone calls with program managers, with the collaborative for the Military and Families Collaborative in California. So we do monthly phone calls with them, and anyone's invited to join in. And then we obviously do the biennial survey, and then we do a lot with community partnerships. So we work closely with the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls to develop programs for women vets. That's one of their major pillars. And the latest thing that we've developed is a mentorship program here in California. It's an online mentorship program for women veterans. So we also focus on advocacy and support, where we try and improve the current services that are available in California and then look at future development for other services. So that includes working with our partners to find out what feedback they have about what's not working and what is working and how we can influence that from an advocacy perspective. And then we also have initiatives that we try and roll out. The first initiative that we're trying to roll out now is actually about sexual assault prevention and victim care. And so this is really focusing on providing some major outcomes to the state. One would be any sort of policy recommendations about how California can pass legislation or make policy recommendations about changes that it needs to make to improve victim care in California. The other part of that is that we will also provide cultural competency training to county veteran service officers to improve the number of women that go into their offices and then that can actually get fully developed claims. And then we're also going to work with the VA to ensure that those claims that are being submitted for sexual assault or post-traumatic stress for sexual assault do get approved at higher rates than they currently are. And then finally, outreach is our other focus, which outreach is kind of the name of the game for everybody. We all have a hard time reaching veterans for one reason or another, and women veterans are really no exception. So we really try and focus on providing events that women want to come to. So one would be our annual leadership conference. So we just did a leadership conference in San Diego in September. And then prior to that, we did one in Sacramento in October in 2012. And then my predecessor had put on about 4 conferences prior to that. Those are attended by about 300 people annually. And a lot of the women that do attend them are first-timers to the community. And so they're able to get resources and connections and really start to work with other women vets, and they find it pretty beneficial. In Sacramento, we also do a Military History Week reception where we honor women in the 3rd week of March for their service, and this is something that the governor also puts out via proclamation. And then I also attend a lot of events throughout the state for organizations, college campuses that are doing the same thing that week, and then we're able to recognize those women. And then we do our newsletter, social media, Facebook page. And then coming soon will be our outreach toolkit. So I'm releasing this in January. I've been trying to release it over the last few months, but I get busy. I don't know what happens. So this outreach toolkit is going to give best practices of what different organizations are doing to outreach to women. It's going to give a fact sheet about women vets in California. It's going to talk about their needs. And then it's also going to give suggestions about how you can better outreach to women and how you can better kind of capture them overall in your services. So that'll be coming soon, and we can provide that either via mail, it'll be on our website, we can email it, so we can provide that to anyone that wants it. And then we do a lot of outreach events and town hall meetings when we can as well. So this is what our roster looks like. This is the pamphlet that we have, and that's the inside of the pamphlet there. So those are available on that back table back there if you'd like to take some, just as an example. And then if you email me, I can actually mail you pamphlets because we've printed many, so you can have those in your offices as well. And then the Women Veterans Survey will be open until about December 20th. So we only have a few more weeks to open this survey. This is a collaboration between the California Research Bureau, the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, and my department. And what we're doing is really assessing the needs of women and assessing our outreach efforts to meet those needs on a biennial basis. So I really encourage people to take this. I do have some paper copies of the survey back there as well if you'd like to take those. And then there's a packet back there that if you grab that first sheet is directing where you can take the survey online in addition to the address that's down here. And so here are some resources that we wanted to give as a focus of this event as well today. And these are different things from different communities. So one would be the crisis line for women vets that they can call with the VA, which was established just this year, which is a fantastic resource for women. Women have found that have given feedback that as soon as they call and they're able to talk to an operator, they actually are able to get some claims issues resolved. They're able to get some direction on healthcare issues. So it's a good hotline to use. And then up in the upper right-hand corner, that's the Women Veterans Outreach Toolkit. That's the website, womenshealth.va.gov, if you want that. And I actually printed that, so that's in those packets in the back as well. For the Facebook icon, that's our Facebook page. California Women Veterans Leadership Conference is the name of the group. So you can join that and then be connected to other women veterans groups in the area as well. There's a statewide one, and then there's one for Southern California. And then our website is calvet.ca.gov/women, and you can find all the programs and resources on there as well. And then Service the Film over on the left-hand side, that left corner, that's a great film to show at your campuses if you're planning to do events for women vets, because it kind of shows a roundabout picture of the different types of service that women have given and different things that may have happened to them, good transitions, bad transitions. It's an excellent educational tool. And then at the very bottom is the Joining Forces Mentoring Plus. This is the mentorship website that has been brought to California by us and by the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. And women can sign up either as subject matter experts, so all of you can sign up as subject matter experts. Women veterans can sign up to be mentors or mentees. And then the mentors don't need to be women vets. They can just be women in business or women in a professional atmosphere that want to serve as a mentee. And it's a great program that's been recognized by the White House. That's why it's part of the Joining Forces program. So we've just brought that to California in September, and that's pretty exciting. And that's my contact information. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Magdalena, and then, or am I turning in? No. Because we now want to hear from our student veteran panel. So can we be introduced? Or you can introduce the. This, oh, right, she did, okay. So yeah, so I guess we'll just turn it over to Magdalena. If you want to moderate our student veteran panel, the two ladies from our campuses, Sharon and Jennifer, and then we can take questions after that.
Hi. Sharon, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences you've had on your campus as a woman veteran?
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Sharon, and I attend 2 campuses currently. I'm at Orange Coast College campus as well as Coastline Community College campus. I attend dual campuses just for scheduling purposes. some of the concerns that you talked about are right on the button for me. Like most female veterans that I know, or just females in general I know, I served in the military. I got out of the military with an honorable discharge. I got married. I had kids, and then decided to go back and continue my education. Because I'm divorced and I'm the sole caretaker for my children, I'm financially responsible for them, as well as physically responsible, as well as emotionally responsible, all that comes with a single parent. So some of the challenges that I've had to face as a student is, one, working out the scheduling for work and school and caretaking of the children, and trying to encompass all of that while staying sane has been kind of a challenge. The vet center on my campus, Coastline, is the classes that I take on campus, and I'm sorry, at Orange Coast. The vet center at Orange Coast College is really wonderful there. I probably spent the first 2 months of re-entry into my education in that office a lot, and the resources that the vet center provides on campus are really just amazing and sort of mandatory if I wanted to continue my education. It's really important, and I'm so grateful and honored that you all are here to try to implement some of those services for female veterans. It's really, I could not have done it without them. Coastline College also, they emailed me. I didn't go into that center, but I did speak to them on a daily basis through email. So there's other ways to communicate to your female veterans. They don't have to be in your office to talk to them. With social media and emails, I'm sure you all know it's great. Just one of the challenges for me was I went back to school after a lot of years of being out of school, and so it took me a while to get my feet kind of wet on what I was supposed to do, and the paperwork and the benefits, and was I under the post 9/11 or the GI Bill, or what was my my benefits that were provided to me. The vet center did help me with that, but then I got sent over to the financial aid office, and they didn't really work cohesively with the Veterans Center. So one of the things that I would like to see is maybe a veterans representative in a financial aid office, or a financial aid representative in the Veterans Center, so that they could all work cohesively as a team, because there was a lot of challenges with that, with raising kids, being on a budget, working full-time. Those financial aid benefits were as important as my education benefits. And when I didn't get my financial aid on time, or when it was supposed to be dispersed, it was, it almost made me stop what I was doing. I was just like, forget it, I'm not gonna do it, it's too much. Like, thank God I'm hard-headed and stubborn. That's the only reason I continued, quite frankly. So, so one of the things I would like to see is maybe we could get a veterans representative in the financial aid office, or have them work more cohesively with our Veterans Center to help the female vets, because as you said, we have kids issues, and we're caretakers, and we're working, and we're trying to go to school as well, so it's a lot for us females. That's all.
All right. Jennifer.
Well, I have two perspectives here. I am an employee at Coastline Community College, so I can speak to what our Veteran Resource Center has, but I'm also, although I'm at USC now, I did start at a community college. When I first got out of active duty in 2004, I did attend a local community college, a traditional campus, and I had a lot of the same issues that a lot of the veterans spoke to at the beginning of the panel this morning on just being able to interact with those students. I felt that I just was in a different world than they were. Although I was still young, I was 20 at the time when I first got back. They didn't have a Veterans Resource Center at the time, so I felt that I had nowhere to go. When I was then employed at Coastline, we didn't have a Veterans Resource Center at the time there as well, but I was able to learn the system more and understand why there was such a need for a Veterans Resource Center. So when we finally had the opportunity to get a physical location at Coastline, we jumped on the opportunity to have that available. And now seeing the veterans that come in, although we're not a traditional campus, primarily all of our students take classes online, we do have veterans that are coming into the Resource Center. We do have female veterans that are coming into the Resource Center. And one of the most important things I think that we are seeing is that we have a female that's staffing it. We have both males and females, but the one female that we have staffing it, she engages the students. They feel open to talk to her. A lot of females, personally, I know that if I were to walk into a resource center and there was a male there, I may not feel comfortable to tell him what I was experiencing, what problems I was having. But having a female there that they can relate to, that has gone through the same experiences, that definitely does help. I know that for myself, I never wanted to admit that I was a veteran, mainly because of the stigma that was with it. A lot of times they thought, well, you may have been in the military, but you didn't deploy. Maybe you were in the rear end. You didn't do any of the stuff that these males have done. And so a lot of times when I first got back, I was young. I would listen to it, and I let it get to me. And I thought, well, then I'm not going to even admit that I was a veteran. I'm not going to talk about my experiences. I don't want it to be downplayed as if not as important as my male counterparts. But even now, I see that my husband and I have purchased a home, and we're getting these refinance information, and I'm the veteran, my husband is not. However, every single piece of material that's in my house is addressed to my husband, because they assume that he's the veteran, not myself. So obviously there's nothing the campus can do about that, but it's just a lot of times you just don't realize that that female there is a veteran, just like that male that's sitting there. We don't often wear the insignia as the males do, but we are still just as part and proud of our service. We just may not always speak about it, because sometimes we get those looks and then they wonder just how our experiences are. And a lot of times they don't believe us when we do tell them that we are in and that we served. They kind of look at you like, yeah, sure you did. So, but I think the important thing is that recognizing that there are female veterans out there, and just listening to them, giving them the opportunity to speak. Sometimes they're not going to want to talk to you right away. They're not going to want to identify themselves, but they do want to be recognized as veterans, and they do not want to be necessarily separated away from the males. We want to be inclusive, but we do want you to understand that we do have our own needs as well. It was mentioned here about childcare. I think that's one of the biggest things that our female veterans are coming in and telling us, other than health care and housing and employment, is that they're trying to go to school, they're trying to take care of a family. And typically the female is the one that's taking care of the child, and they need to have childcare services available to them, affordable, and that's not always available, and they're trying to do everything that they can just to raise their family, go to school. So if there's any type of services that you could provide that helped with that somehow, I think that's one of the biggest things we see at our Veterans Resource Center.
Okay. Can I ask you, what kinds of events do you think would be good to be held on campus? What type of events for you as women that maybe you had there on your campus?
Well, I can speak to Coastline. We haven't had any female-specific events. Again, because we're not traditional, we don't have the foot traffic coming in. We're not seeing as many of them. But I think that I know that I believe it's Long Beach that has a female resource center. And I know that they do a lot of events talking about military traumatic events, and I think that I went to one of them, and it was very informative. I felt that it was very opening for all of us to see that it does exist and that it's happening, although people aren't talking about it. So events like that, to recognize the services and the experience that the female veterans have, would be helpful for the campuses.
We do have events at Orange Coast College. I have seen veterans events, trying to encourage veterans to just be knowledgeable that we have a veterans center at Orange Coast College. But when they do those events, there's always like a young Marine guy, like super serious Marine guy in his full super serious uniform. Like, I would never go over, I don't even go over there, because I'm not gonna, oh, hi, I'm a veteran too, you know what I mean? And if I was 20, I definitely wouldn't go over there, you know? So maybe if you were gonna hold veterans events for females or try to encourage, maybe you could get a female in there as well. And maybe in uniform or out of uniform, just to have a female representative to those types of events would be helpful.
Any questions from the audience?
Yes, yes. Can I go ahead and, would anybody like to ask questions?
I really don't want to, thank you ladies and Lindsay.
Hi.
One of the things that I'm from Pasadena City College, and one of the things that we found to work for our females was that we actually did a monthly Band of Sisters lunch. Our Student Services Fund donated, I think it was about $1,200 for the semester for us. And the gentleman out in the hall there, John from AMVETS, he paid for lunch for us one time too. So once a month, we do a female veterans lunch. Excuse me, sometimes we try and pull in some heavy hitters. Stephanie Stone has come to lunch. Michaela Montoya has come to lunch. Colonel Judson, who ran the hospitals over in Germany, and now she's the head of the hospital in Glendale. And but she comes in and we just sit and have lunch with our ladies. And at first we had 3, and now we have about 18, and we do it once a month. The other thing that we're trying to do, we're trying to figure out if it's against the law or not, is that we would like to shut our Veterans Resource down for about 4 hours a week and have it nothing but females to come into our center. Now, I had one Marine, young, in his uniform, high and tight. It's like, you can't do that. That's not right. Well, so that's something else that we're trying to do. Couple of us braved to Go Rock. Yes, ma'am. Yes. We did an all-female Go Ruck. Was a Go Ruck? Oh my goodness, it was hell. Yeah. Basically, you put on a ruck, a backpack full of bricks. We went from rocks, wrote your challenges on your rock, and then we hiked, swam. What did we do? 12 miles? Yeah. 12 miles through San Francisco. We did things like that, and then another group of the females at PCC are going to do an Outward Bound, and that's free for all OIF, OEF veterans, and that's a 6 or 7 day challenge. Yeah, but the lunch seems to work, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help you do that. It's an hour. Stephanie Stone, the head of the county, an hour for my lady veterans, absolutely. So I think that's a really easy thing that all of us can do.
Okay. Who else has a question? I'd also like to mention that Women's Military Week is also a great time to do events, whether you do a resource day or you show some films, or you have a reception of some sort for the women veterans on your campus. Okay.
When is that date?
It's the third.
Third week of March.
Yes. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Don't need this, I don't think, but my
Okay.
name's Pat, and I'm with the CSU, the Chancellor's Office. I had a chance to work at Long Beach State and running the Veterans Affairs program there. And I also spent some time studying
if you had a question, and then take you.
One of the things that we struggle with on our campus is that we're working hard, as many, I think, many of my peers in the room, just to get veterans services and veterans staffing to support our veterans. So unfortunately, special populations within the gamut of the veterans population tend to become secondary, or once we get our VRC, then we're going to start working on this. And so for those of those, I guess, does anyone in the room or any of the panelists have any recommendations on very cost-effective or no cost, because many of us don't have operating budgets
Yeah.
to even support our general population. That's something I think that was covered last year in the panel that I found very helpful. I don't know if anyone else has any additional comments or here, but like you said, hiring a vet to work where
That's right.
you know, they come, it's part of it. One of my vets said, let's put up some veterans women's posters. And, just things that didn't cost money. On our resource board, we have a section that's just veterans women's announcements. Now, I don't have time to, or money to pay for them, but we can at least print them out and put them up.
Sure.
So that's one issue. And then, I don't know if anyone in the room has any comments on just the legalities of programming, specifically for women. Because I work in scholarships and financial aid specifically. I know Ed Code, state law, and the federal laws, which prohibit us, because we receive federal funding, to discriminate based on gender. So we can't discriminate nor give preference
Right.
to. So I don't know if that's something we can put out there in the atmosphere for Cal vets or for the VA to see female vets as maybe a protected class. So then we could develop scholarships specific to women veterans. We could legally, get funding specifically for female programming. It would be my first impression right now that we couldn't do that. We couldn't shut down the VRC just for women because of the federal financial issues.
Yeah, I'll make a couple comments on that first. So I would say in terms of the legalities, that's not just a problem with the scholarships. Obviously, it's state
In general.
statute, and then there's federal statute with that too. We found those same challenges when looking at legislation to develop veterans-only housing, for instance, because veterans are not a protected class at all.
At all.
So that's a challenge that we're all facing. But I would then look at, if it was a private trust or foundation, how much are they rolled into some of that? And if it's not federal funds, it's not state funds, then maybe there is opportunities with the campus trust or campus foundation to
And
do that.
we've actually checked with our legal counsel, and that was a
I would say though that in my experience working with veterans on campuses and then just talking to other campuses, and a lot of you guys are going to know this anyway, women veterans can sometimes be some of your best officers for your SBA programs. And if you've got a strong SBA that's doing things and you are reaching a broader population that may have quite a bit of diversity, that may be a good argument for why you should get those resources on your campus in the first place. But also engaging some of your community partners like veteran service organizations, women's organizations, so the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls for your county or your city may be good opportunities, or even a Soroctivist Society may be a good opportunity for you to look at some female-specific services where you want to put some money into that. Yeah, that legality thing, that bothers me a lot.
Yes. Oops, and
One of the things that I think has been successful for us at Cal State Fullerton and our Women Vet program is that online, our website has a Women Vet tab, so that although we do have a childcare stipend, we don't discriminate. We will take applications for both male and female veterans, but we're certain to make sure that that application is posted on the Women Vet tab, so that they not only have access to just the regular resource tab, but when you look specifically at women veteran support services, they'll find things like childcare, weekly discussion groups, brunches. We also hold monthly brunches for our women veterans. That is just a very simple solution. Soroctivist was an organization, a local organization, that provided funds for our very first brunch for the year for our women veterans. So utilizing our community service providers who can also help us with some of these extras certainly is a way to go while we're building this.
would like to add that on some campuses, like my campus, when we do our Veterans Resource Day, we go to our Student Senate and ask our Student Senate for support. And the Student Senate helps us with the lunches. It also helps us with other support that we need. And then we also go to our culinary arts program and ask them for their support, and they usually give us a cut for the lunches. So sometimes just going to some of the resources on your campus and just asking, you'd be surprised how many of them they're willing. I mean, they're like, sure, we can help. Or free cups of coffee, we do that during our Veterans Appreciation Weeks. And they're just great about it. Have coupons and they say, oh, that's wonderful. Yes, we'd love to do that. So I think sometimes just asking on our own campuses can be very, very supportive. And they can be things that won't cost that much to be able if you don't have a budget, because we certainly don't either. You had a question there?
Well, it was a little bit before when they were talking about some of the things that made it hard for them to go to school. Women are nurturers. So here, they'll say, I won't do that. I have to do it for my kids or whatever. So here you're knocking them again because they're not helping them. Well, they're helping them. They're doing it because they're nurturing somebody else. And they're, not doing it for themselves. Not meaning they're not doing it for themselves, but, they're giving that up to help someone else, which even just makes it that much harder for them to get through school and stuff.
So I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. Okay. Let's see, who had their hand up? Well,
I just had a comment, so pick somebody else.
okay.
Yeah, I had a comment too I wanted to echo. I think I'm kind of unique here in Orange County as a behavioral health specialist and a veteran working on campus. I work for the county, and we have a memorandum of understanding with Santa Ana College and Orange Hills College. So I've had the fortunes of doing one-on-ones for both men and women veterans and hearing the stories. And one of the focus I had going into this particular year was to see what we do to draw out my sisters out there who are staying pretty much low-key and off the radar. Having some of my caseload being women, I get to hear, and very privileged to hear some of the struggles that they're having. And one of the things you highlighted is that some of the women veterans coming back, especially those who have been deployed, that innate gift of being able to bond has been robbed of them, and so they're struggling to try to reconnect. I hear the word purpose a lot that they have lost and they're trying to regain, as well as some of the struggles of trying to that identity of not only being a woman, but I hear also too that if they had a choice, they would rather go back to the military because there they felt as though they were somebody, and not taken away from the fact of the love of their children. So I have the fortunes of working with the academic counselor. So what we have developed is from the time that a veteran walks on campus, they recognize that it is vet friendly, and so bringing a VetNet Ally program, which of course you'll see tomorrow, it gives them a sense of safety for one and a place and knowing that they really do care about the challenges that they have. The academic counselor gives us an opportunity to identify those who may be struggling with the various things that you had highlighted so that then they can come to me to talk about what those issues are that's going to prevent them from being able to successfully get through their academia. I also vet the programs here, the services in the county to make sure that they are vet friendly by connecting with a child guidance center, Boys Town. I've also made connections with the VA so that they actually are coming out and providing trainings for both behavioral health as well as providing what we're going to do in the spring is do vignettes for the faculty and administration so that they have a better understanding of how to deal with veterans in the classroom. And one thing that I'm really excited about was we were trying to figure out how do we now bring out an event for our women veterans to see that we also want to take care of them so we can create, beginning in February, groups for both men and women on campus, because that's sorely missing is the opportunity to be able to talk about their experiences and struggles that they're having.
Okay. Can I give my email address if anybody would like to send me an email for resource information? That is one of my strengths and fortes. So if you'd like to send me an email, it's taurus@sbcc.edu. And I also teach, and I teach women's studies and feminist studies at night. So I can give you whatever resource information that you would like on women veterans, recent films and so forth, as Lindsay also has that information.